Picture yourself on the edge of a cliff. On one side, the promise of success in all areas of life, academic, professional, personal. On the other, the threat of falling into the traps of excess and impulsivity. What defines the balance on this thin line is self-control. But what if I told you that true self-control isn't exactly what we think it is? It doesn't lie in the constant battle against temptations, but in a deeper understanding of ourselves and our true needs and desires. Popular belief tells us that to achieve excellence in any area of life, we need an iron will, capable of keeping us firm in the face of the most seductive temptations. However, research suggests that this view of self-control, as a continuous and Herculean effort, may not be the most accurate. Individuals with high self-control, paradoxically, are not those who are constantly resisting temptation. They simply find themselves less in situations where temptation is a threat. Imagine the difference between being at a party filled with sweets and treats, struggling not to give in, and choosing not to go to the party, opting instead for an activity aligned with your health goals. Effective self-control, then, may be less about resisting and more about wisely choosing our environments and commitments. The concept of ego depletion suggests that the resistance to temptations is a limited capacity that gets exhausted with use. Interestingly, those who consider themselves good at controlling themselves are, in fact, more vulnerable to this depletion. Studies show that, after exercising self-control, these individuals tend to make riskier decisions and give in more easily to subsequent temptations. This irony highlights a crucial truth about self-control. It is not an inexhaustible force that some have in abundance and others do not. Instead, true self-control may reside in the ability to avoid situations that require its extensive use, thus maintaining our reserve of self-control for truly critical moments. When was the last critical moment when you had to pull the last crumb of self-control not to do something foolish? Share it here below, let that energy flow through a light and calm comment. Okay, moving on. The secret of people with high self-control may not lie in their ability to say no, but in their skill in organizing themselves in such a way that no is rarely necessary. For example, instead of relying on the willpower to resist fast food, they develop the habit of preparing healthy meals at home. This focus on prevention rather than resistance reveals a crucial aspect of self-control: the construction of positive habits and the elimination of negative habits. Moreover, rather than seeing self-control as an isolated act of resistance, it is more productive to understand it as a series of choices that lead us to develop routines that support our long-term goals. These routines, in turn, reduce the need for constant decision-making, allowing our energies to be directed more effectively. Instead of envisioning self-control as a ceaseless struggle against our desires, we should start to see it as the art of creating an environment and a life that naturally lead us to our goals. By understanding and practicing self-control not as renunciation but as a smart choice about where we focus our energy and attention, we can achieve a more sustainable and rewarding balance in our lives. True self-control emerges not through a constant battle against temptations but by the ability to structure our lives in such a way that temptations become irrelevant. This means deeply understanding our goals, values, and what motivates us. Rather than depending on an unshakable willpower, we should aim to create a system of habits and choices that automatically support us in the direction of our long-term goals. Self-control, therefore, is less about resisting every individual temptation and more about proactively shaping our environment and routines to reflect who we want to be. This may mean, for example, limiting distractions that compete with our most important priorities, cultivating habits that reinforce our goals, and learning to recognize and avoid situations that have historically led us to impulsive decisions. Ultimately, self-control is a tool for living a more intentional and satisfying life. It allows us to focus on what truly matters, minimizing the noise and distractions that compete for our attention daily. By engaging less in internal struggles and focusing more on building a life aligned with our values, we discover that self-control can be a liberating experience, not a restrictive one. Thus, the path to effective self-control is not in trying to become a person who never faces desires or temptations. It is, instead, In becoming someone whose life is structured in such a way that temptations are naturally minimized and desires are in harmony with long-term goals. It is in this understanding that we find the key to a life not only of success but of profound satisfaction and happiness.